Has this ever happened to you? You have a blank page in front of you and you're about to write the first word of your amazing novel, and all of a sudden you remember that probably no one's going to read it for some reason. Or maybe you step up to the microphone ready to drop some bars on that royalty-free trap beat, and then you remember the voice of your dad telling you that you'll never be a rapper. Or maybe, just maybe, you sit down at your desk in front of your colourful wall, you stick your camera on ready to make a YouTube video, when suddenly you hear the sound of a hater in the comments telling you that you should never have made this video in the first place. If these voices sound familiar, then this video is for you. These voices are your inner critics and they stand in between you and the work. Sometimes you can break through them, get to the other side and finish the project. But other times, they break you and you don't finish the project at all. So the natural question to ask is, how do you silence the inner critics? That is what this video will be addressing. But before I get to that, I want to read a passage from a book called Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. It's a book on how to write a book. And there's this one phrase that I like so much that I've decided to turn it into a crude animation. So here's some story time. What I've learned to do when I sit down to work on a shitty first draft is to quiet the voices in my head. First, there's the vinegar-lipped reader lady who says primly, well, that's not very interesting, is it? And there's the emaciated German male who writes these Orwellian memos detailing your thought crimes. And there are your parents, agonising over your lack of loyalty and discretion. And there's William Burroughs dozing off or shooting up because he finds you as bold and articulate as a houseplant. And so on. I happened to mention this to my hypnotist I saw many years ago, and he looked at me very nicely. At first, I thought he was feeling around the floor for the silent alarm button, but then he gave me the following exercise which I still use to this day. Close your eyes and get quiet for a minute, until the chatter starts up. Then isolate one of the voices and imagine the person speaking as a mouse. Pick it up by the tail and drop it into a mason jar. Then isolate another voice. Pick it up by the tail, drop it in the jar, and so on. Drop any high-maintenance parental units, drop in any contractors, lawyers, colleagues, children, anyone who is whining in your head. Then put the lid on and watch all these mouse people clawing at the glass, jabbering away, trying to make you feel like shit because you won't do that they want. Won't give them more money, won't be more successful, won't see them more often. Then imagine that there is a volume control button on the bottle. Turn it all the way up for a minute and listen to the stream of angry, neglected, guilt-mongering voices. Then turn it all the way down and watch the frantic mice lunge at the glass, trying to get at you. Leave it down and get back to your shitty first draft. So that's the passage, and there's 3 things that I love about it. Firstly, it's just great writing. From a purely aesthetic point of view, that is a delight to consume. Secondly, I feel less alone in my neuroticism, and therefore a tiny bit less neurotic. So thank you, Anne Lamott, for having the bravery to document that side of you. Thirdly, she personified her inner critics. This makes the intangible tangible, and when something's tangible, when we can touch, see, and feel it and understand it in terms that we know, well then it becomes more manageable, which means our inner critics, thanks to personification, are now something that we can deal with. This concept of personifying your thoughts goes deeper than the inner critic. There's a guy called Tim Urban who writes a blog called Wait But Why, and he had this TED Talk where he talks about how he used this technique to overcome procrastination.
So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain.
If the instant gratification monkey takes over, we never get to the work.
The rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't like that plan. So he actually takes the wheel and he says, actually, let's read the entire Wikipedia page of the Nancy Kerrigan-Tanya Harding scandal because I just remembered that happened. Then we're going to go over to the fridge. We're going to see if there's anything new in there since 10 minutes ago.
Understanding what's inside you through personification can sometimes even go deeper than just that. So there's a band I love, Andrew Jackson Jihad. Check them out if you haven't. Incredible folk punk band. And they have a song where they use this technique in order to understand not just procrastination, not just your inner critics, but the deepest, darkest depth of humanity. Here's how they put it.
There's a bad man in everyone, no matter who we are. There's a rapist and a Nazi living in our tiny hearts. Child pornographers and cannibals and politicians too. There's someone in your head waiting to fucking strangle you.
The language is far more confronting here, but the message is the same. The fastest way to understand the unknown is to put it in terms of the known. By personifying the voices, the critics, and the demons in our head, we can start to have a better grip on keeping them at bay. Basically, the way that people felt after they'd seen Inside Out. just a little bit more comfortable with their darkness. So that was part 1, and this is part 2, where I'm going to try use this technique and personify my own thoughts, my own resistance, my own inner critics. And I'm going to use the blank page, aka me with unfinished work. So just to touch on the model again, here's me with unfinished work. The goal is me with finished work, and in the middle are the thoughts that I'm trying to personify, the things that stop me getting there. And upon examination, I put it down to 7 different characters. So I'm going to go through them. I'm going to draw them like trading cards. This could get super weird, but bear with me. It might be fun. Maybe. Inner critic number 1 is Nelly the nihilist. When Nelly the nihilist is standing between me and the work being done, the thoughts that I'm having are things like, why do anything in the first place? The sun's going to burn out in 5 billion years and we're all going to die. Every person that you've ever known, everything you've ever felt, one day it's all just going to be completely forgotten and just dust floating through the ether. So why even start? Why contribute to a world on its path to the grave? So that's Nelly the nihilist, and when I went to make this particular video, the thoughts that came in strong are, there is so much content on the internet. This is weird. The world doesn't need it. The world doesn't need anything. The world doesn't need you. Damn. The world just doesn't. Inner critic number 2, Terry the Terrified. When Terry the Terrified's voice is the loudest one that's stopping me from getting to the finished work, the thoughts that I have are things like, I'm scared that I'm wasting my time making stuff. I'm scared that the things that I make are weird. I'm scared that people are just being nice to me and they're not actually being received as well as I think. I'm scared that I'm not very good. I'm scared that I'll never be good. And I'm scared that all of this is for nothing. Chuck and his catchphrase, oh God, oh God, oh God. Terry the Terrified, look at him. God, what a powerful stance, just rocking back and forth and shaking. In terms of making this particular video, the Terry the Terrified voice came in strong in the sense that he's like, I'm scared that you're gonna lose people with this weird esoteric thought personification idea. I'm scared that no one's gonna get it, and they're all watching this being like, bro, you've done far too much acid as a young man and it is starting to show. Could be right. Could be right. Inner critic number 3, Nina the Needy. Nina the Needy gets in the way of me and finished work by producing thoughts that are along the lines of, will people like this universally? How can I make something that will have absolutely zero hate? Because when her voice is the loudest, we cannot deal with even the slightest bit of criticism. So that's Nina the Needy. And Nina the Needy's voice for this particular video has come in strong in the sense that I want people to like it, but I know it's weird. So maybe I shouldn't make it at all. And maybe I should just go look at comments where people have told me that they like me instead of making this video. So I can just fast forward to the feeling that Nina the Needy really wants. Dave the Disctractable. Dave the Distractable's voice stops me from getting to the finished work by telling me things like, bro, let's check the fridge, let's check our email, let's check Instagram, let's do some friggin' drugs, bro. Let's just grab a beer and sit in the park and eat hummus for 10 hours. Dave is my version of the instant gratification monkey. Dave the Distractable. In terms of making this particular video, I went to sit down here maybe 2 days ago and golly, what happened? My friend was like, hey, let's go to dinner. And I was like, that sounds way better. So I turned off the camera and went to dinner. Inner critic number 5, Hugo the Hater. Hugo the Hater's voice stops me from getting to the work because when I do make the work, all I hear is the voice of a potential hater telling me that whatever I've made is trash, and so am I by extension. It's a funny one because what I've done is I've internalized actual hate comments that I've read, and my brain has built a character from that and exaggerated how many people must be thinking that. And now it's just a thought that I have automatically. These thoughts include, missed the mark on this one, Jesus, this is cringy, oh my God, is this guy serious, what a joke. And that's Hugo the Hater. In terms of making this particular video, I can hear this voice saying, yeah, I feel like you got some good videos, but some of them just are wildly off. I don't know if you've got a voice like this, but I definitely do. Inner critic number 6, Connie the Comparer. Connie the Comparer stops me finishing work by deciding that whatever I make won't be good enough to be considered work. Because she looks at the best work from the most talented people that I admire, tells me that I envy them, and then compares it to my worst work and tells me that I'll never be good enough, which is a hard thought, and as we all know, comparison is the thief of joy. Connie the Comparer. This voice has come in strong in terms of making this particular video, not in the sense that I'm comparing it to somebody else, but in the sense that I'm actually comparing this video to a completely finished video that I've made, and a good one, and the voice that I'm getting is, this one won't be as good as that, so don't make it, which is, yeah, not the most productive thought. And finally, inner critic number 7, Percy the perfectionist. Percy the perfectionist stops me from getting to the finished work by saying, if it's not perfect, don't do it. Nobody wants to see anything that isn't 100% perfect. If you don't nail it on the first time, just give up, and imperfection is a sign of weakness. Percy the perfectionist. This voice is coming strong for this video because I keep refilming it, and I don't know why. I think I just want it to be perfect, and I'm going against my 70% rule, wherein I've decided that I'm only going to upload things after they're 70% good instead of poring over them and trying to get to 100. But I'm trying to push against it. I'm trying to fight the resistance. This is probably the strongest voice I have in my head, I think, when it comes down to me making stuff. So those are my personified 7 inner critics. There's no science to it or anything. That's just me squinting and trying to isolate each of the voices. But the cool thing is, by doing this exercise, it has taught me something quite valuable. And that's the answer to our question. How do you silence your inner critics? Well, maybe the answer isn't to silence them at all. Maybe the answer is actually to give them a voice. And once you do, you find that instead of them using you, you can use them, because that voice comes from a place which is pain, and pain is something that you can articulate in order to relate to people, which is my understanding of what art is. By taking something that's unknown but unanimously felt, like, you know, that sense of self-sabotage or inner critic or resistance, and being able to articulate it by actually diving deep into said resistance, I think that, for me, is more valuable than just avoiding it or letting it go quiet. So to Anne Lamott's point, I let these mice in their jars have their volume all the way up. And now that they are, well, I can turn them straight down and just talk, clear as day, straight to you. And, of course, as Neil Gaiman says,
when things get tough, this is what you should do. Make good art.
Thank you very much for watching. That video took a little bit of time to make, so I hope you liked it. Subscribe if you're new, that would help me out. If you want to try personify your inner critics, that'd be really cool. I think a lot of people might want to read that. I think that'd be nice to see if somebody else tried this exercise. Other than that, I will see you next week. Catch ya.